Eleanor Whitfield's hands wouldn't stop shaking as the stagecoach door swung open. 7 feet of man stood waiting, shoulders broad as barn doors, hands that could crush bone. Her new husband, the one she'd never seen. Terror seized her throat because the last man who'd touched her had nearly killed her, and this one was twice the size. But when Josiah McCready whispered, "Ma'am, I won't hurt you," something in his voice made her want to believe the impossible. Before we begin Eleanor and Josiah's journey, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay with us until the very end. This story will surprise you. And comment below with your city so we can see how far their love story travels across the world. Now, let's begin. The train station in Cheyenne smelled like coal smoke and horse manure. Eleanor pressed herself against the wall, making herself smaller, a habit she'd perfected over 23 years of surviving. The telegram in her pocket had brought her here. Arrival confirmed. Will meet you Tuesday. J. McCready. 3 months ago she'd answered his advertisement. Widowed rancher seeks wife, must be strong of character, size matters not. That last line had made her laugh bitterly. Size was all that ever mattered. Mrs. McCready. The voice came from above, way above. Eleanor looked up and her breath stopped. The man wasn't just tall. He was a mountain-given human form, 7 feet easily, shoulders that stretched his coat to bursting, hands that looked capable of snapping a man's neck. Dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her stomach flip. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Ma'am." He stepped closer and she flinched so hard she hit the wall. He stopped immediately, raised both hands, palms out. "I'm Josiah," he said quietly. "I won't hurt you. I know who you are." Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "I'm Eleanor." "I figured." He kept his hands up, kept his distance. "You're smaller than I expected." "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize." He frowned. "I just meant I'll need to build you some step stools, lower some shelves." Eleanor blinked. That wasn't what men usually said. "You'd do that?" "Of course, it's your house too." He reached for her trunk with one hand and lifted it like it weighed nothing. "Wagon's outside. You hungry?" She was starving. She'd eaten half a bread roll yesterday. "I'm fine." He studied her for a long moment. "When's the last time you ate?" "I said, I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." Something in his tone wasn't cruel or demanding, just firm. Eleanor found herself answering, "Yesterday morning." Josiah's jaw tightened. He set the trunk down. "Come on." He started walking, then paused. "Please." That word, please. Richard had never said please. Eleanor followed. The restaurant was small and warm. Josiah had to duck through the doorway. Several patrons stared. One woman clutched her child closer. He seemed not to notice. He pulled out a chair for Eleanor, then folded himself into the chair across from her. His knees hit the table. He shifted, adjusting without comment. "2 stews," he told the waitress. "Bread, coffee, pie if you have it." "We do, Mr. McCready. Apple." "2 slices." He looked at Eleanor. "You like apple pie?" "I don't know." His expression shifted, something almost like anger, but not directed at her. "Well, you're about to." The stew came steaming. Eleanor's stomach cramped with hunger, but she forced herself to eat slowly. Ladies were supposed to have small appetites. Josiah ate efficiently. For such a large man, he was surprisingly neat. "Tell me about Boston," he said. "Your letter said you worked in a textile mill." "Yes, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week." "That's hard work." "It was steady." "What made you leave?" Eleanor's hand tightened on her spoon. "I was widowed." "I know, but Boston has other mills. Wyoming's a long way to come." She met his eyes. "I needed somewhere nobody knew me." Understanding crossed his face. "Someone hurt you." It wasn't a question. Eleanor's throat closed. "Eat your stew," Josiah said. "You don't have to talk about it." But she found herself talking anyway. My husband, Richard. He was a supervisor at the mill. The words came haltingly. Everyone thought I was lucky. Good position, good wages, nice apartment. But he drank, and when he drank, he got angry. She stared at her bowl. I learned to be quiet, to be small, to disappear. You're already small, Josiah said. You shouldn't have to disappear too. Something in her chest cracked. How did he die? Fell down the stairs, drunk. She'd never told anyone the whole truth, that she'd been at the top of those stairs, that Richard had been reaching for her, that she'd stepped aside. I didn't push him. I didn't ask if you did. Everyone wondered. I could see it in their faces. Eleanor looked up. I sold everything, bought a train ticket west, saw your advertisement, thought maybe a man who'd been alone as long as you said might understand what it's like to not fit. Josiah was quiet for a long time. I was born wrong, he said finally. That's what my mother told me. Born too big, kept growing when I shouldn't. Doctors said my pituitary gland or some such. By 14, I was 6'5". By 20, I was what you see now. That must have been difficult. Difficult. He laughed without humor. People crossed the street. Girls screamed. Men wanted to fight me. I worked cattle drives because animals don't judge. After 10 years, I bought my own land. He paused. Been alone 5 years now. Why did you place the advertisement? Because I'm tired of being alone. I wanted someone to talk to, someone who might understand that being different doesn't make you dangerous. His eyes held hers. Someone who needed understanding, too. Eleanor's heart hammered. This wasn't what she'd expected. The pie came. Eleanor took a bite, and sweetness exploded across her tongue. You like it, Josiah observed. It's wonderful. Then eat it all. You need to put some weight on. He finished his pie in 3 bites. There's plenty of food at the ranch. You can eat your fill. He paused. You can do a lot of things. That's what I'm trying to say. You're safe now. Safe. The word felt foreign, but Eleanor found herself wanting to believe it. The wagon took them into rolling grassland that stretched forever. Josiah handled the horses with easy confidence. Eleanor studied him from the corner of her eye. His hands on the reins were careful, controlled. He'd helped her into the wagon by offering his arm, not grabbing her. Little things, considerate things. Tell me about the ranch. 300 acres, good water, run about 100 head of cattle. House is stone, built it myself. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, parlor, root cellar. He glanced at her. I put you in the back bedroom, faces east, gets morning light, has its own door to the outside, and a lock. A lock on the inside, so you can lock the door, keep it private. He kept his eyes on the road. I won't come in unless you invite me. Your space is your space. Eleanor's throat tightened. We're married. I know, doesn't mean you owe me anything you're not ready to give. His voice stayed steady. I'm not Richard, but you don't know that yet, so you get time. You get space. You get to decide when and if you want. He stopped. You get to decide everything. That's not how marriage works. That's how this marriage works. They rode in silence. What if I'm never ready? Eleanor asked quietly. Josiah considered this. Then you're never ready. You'll still have a home, still have food, still have respect. He paused. I wanted a partner, not a possession. Someone to build a life with, not someone to control. If all you ever want is friendship and separate bedrooms, that's what we'll have. You'd accept that. I'd accept you. Whatever that looks like. Something inside Eleanor's chest, something that had been locked tight for years, shifted. The ranch appeared as the sun touched the mountains. Stone house, solid and low-roofed, a barn behind it, chickens scratching in a yard, smoke rising from the chimney. Someone's here. Eleanor tensed. Just me this morning. Josiah frowned. Must be Tom, my neighbor. Probably started a fire so the house would be warm. He pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down, then came around to help Eleanor. His palm was calloused, but his grip was careful. He lifted her down like she weighed nothing. The door opened. A grizzled man emerged, grinning. "About time," he called. "I was starting to think you'd chickened out." His eyes found Eleanor and widened. "Well, pleased to meet you, ma'am. Tom Patterson." "Eleanor McCready." "She's smaller than I expected," Tom said to Josiah. "She's perfect," Josiah said firmly. "Mind your manners." Tom laughed. "Just an observation. Come on in. I got stew going." Eleanor looked up at Josiah. "Does he live here too?" "No, his ranch is 5 miles east. Josiah hesitated. "I told him I was nervous about meeting you, about whether you'd actually come. He offered to help make things ready." He looked embarrassed. "I wanted everything to be right." "Why were you nervous?" "Because what if you took one look at me and ran? What if I scared you so badly you got back on that train?" His voice dropped. "What if I finally had a chance at not being alone and I ruined it?" Eleanor stared at him. This giant was afraid of rejection, afraid of loneliness, afraid of being judged, just like her. "I didn't run," she said softly. "No." Something like hope crossed his face. "You didn't. Show me the house." Inside, the furniture was oversized, but Eleanor noticed immediately that several pieces were different. A chair by the fire that was lower, a side table at her height, a step stool near the counter. "You made these," she said. "Josiah sent her trunk down. Started after I got your letter. Wasn't sure what you'd need, so I made some things. If they're not right, I can adjust them." Eleanor ran her hand over the chair. The wood was smooth, carefully sanded. This was craftsmanship. "When did you have time?" "You said you got my letter 3 weeks ago." "I don't sleep much." He shrugged. Gave me something to do, something to look forward to." Tom cleared his throat. "I'll head out. Eleanor, you need anything, our ranch is due east. Follow the creek. My wife Margie would love to meet you." He clapped Josiah on the shoulder. "You done good, son." After Tom left, silence pressed heavy. Eleanor stood in the middle of the parlor, suddenly aware that she was alone with this stranger. This massive stranger who'd promised not to hurt her, but who could so easily break every promise. "Let me show you your room," Josiah said. The back bedroom was small but bright. A bed with a colorful quilt, a dresser, a washstand, and yes, a lock on the inside of the door. Josiah set her trunk at the foot of the bed. "Privy's outside, 30 yards behind the house. I'm working on bringing water inside, but it'll take another month." He moved to the door, paused. "I'm in the front bedroom if you need anything, but like I said, you lock this door, I won't bother you." "Where will you sleep if I lock the door?" "In my room, same as I've slept for 5 years. He frowned. "Did you think?" Understanding dawned. "Oh, no, separate bedrooms, separate rooms entirely. I'm not sharing a bed with you unless you specifically invite me to, and that invitation can be withdrawn any time. Is that clear?" Eleanor nodded slowly. "That's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I thought you'd—" She couldn't say it. "I'm not men. I'm me." Josiah's voice was gentle but firm. "You're safe here. No one touches you without permission, not even your husband." He left, closing the door softly. Eleanor stood in the empty room, listening to his footsteps retreat. The lock was right there, shiny brass. She didn't lock it. Not that night. 3 days passed. Josiah woke before dawn, worked until dusk. Eleanor cooked, cleaned, explored. They talked during meals, small things at first. The weather, the cattle, then deeper things. On the 4th day, Eleanor burned the bread. Black smoke filled the kitchen. She stood frozen, staring at the ruined loaves, panic rising. "Richard would have, happens to everyone," Josiah said from the doorway. He crossed to the stove, pulled the pan off with a towel. "I burned 3 batches before I figured out this oven runs hot. Should have warned you. I wasted the flour. We have more flour. It's not wasted if you learned something." He dumped the blackened bread outside for the chickens. Try again tomorrow. In the meantime, we have yesterday's bread. That was it. No yelling, no punishment, just practicality and patience. Eleanor felt something inside her chest loosen another notch. On the 5th day, she knocked over a lamp. It shattered across the floor. Her hands shook as she dropped to her knees, frantically gathering pieces. "Stop," Josiah said. She froze. "You'll cut yourself." He knelt beside her slowly, carefully. "Let me get the broom." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll replace it. Eleanor." He waited until she looked at him. "It's a lamp. I can buy another lamp. I can't buy another you, so stop apologizing and let me clean this up before you bleed all over my floor." His voice was firm but not angry, matter of fact, almost amused. Eleanor sat back on her heels and watched him sweep up the glass with steady, practiced movements. When he finished, he offered her a hand up. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good. Now come help me with dinner. I'm useless with vegetables, and you have a gift for making them not taste like punishment." That surprised a laugh out of her, a small one but real. Josiah smiled, just a little, just enough. On the 8th day, a thunderstorm rolled in. Eleanor had never been afraid of storms in Boston. The buildings were thick-walled, solid. But here, on the open prairie, with wind howling and lightning cracking close, fear wrapped around her chest like a vice. She lay in bed, clutching the quilt, trying to breathe. Thunder boomed. The house shook. Lightning illuminated everything in stark white flashes. Glass shattered somewhere. Eleanor bolted upright, heart hammering. Another crack of thunder so loud it felt like the world splitting open. She couldn't breathe. Richard had locked her outside during a storm, once laughing while she pounded on the door. She'd been trapped, helpless. Her door flew open. Josiah filled the doorway, backlit by lightning, hair, wild eyes wide. "Eleanor." He stopped when he saw her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "Kitchen window broke, just the wind." He took a step inside. "Can I come in?" She nodded. Josiah crossed the room and knelt beside her bed. Even kneeling, he was tall enough to look her in the eye. "Storm's bad," he said quietly, "but the house is solid." "I know." Her voice shook. I can't." Thunder boomed, and Eleanor flinched so hard she nearly fell off the bed. Josiah caught her hands gentle on her shoulders. "Hey, you're safe, I promise." "He locked me out once, during a storm. I thought I'd die out there." She couldn't finish. Tears came hot and fast, years of suppressed terror finally breaking free. Josiah pulled her against his chest, wrapping his arms around her carefully. "I've got you. You're not outside. You're inside. You're with me, and nothing's going to hurt you." Eleanor clung to him, crying against his nightshirt while the storm raged. He held her like she was made of glass, one hand stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances. His heartbeat was steady under her ear. She didn't know how long they stayed like that. Eventually, the thunder moved off. Eleanor's tears slowed, then stopped. She became aware that she was wrapped in the arms of a man who'd promised never to touch her without permission. "I'm sorry," she whispered. For what? For this. Don't apologize for being human." Josiah's arms loosened but didn't let go. "You want me to leave?" Eleanor realized she didn't. For the first time in years, she felt safe in a man's embrace. "No," she whispered. "Stay, please, stay." So he did. Josiah settled against the headboard, keeping Eleanor wrapped against his chest. He talked stories of his youth, of building this house stone by stone. His voice was deep and rumbling, vibrating through his chest into hers. Eleanor listened and felt something inside her shift, open just a little. Trust was terrifying. Trust had betrayed her before, but Josiah had kept every promise, had given her space and time and patience, had held her through a storm without asking for anything in return. Maybe trust could be rebuilt, one moment at a time. She fell asleep in his arms, and for the first time since Richard died, she didn't have nightmares. When Eleanor woke, she was alone. Morning light streamed through the window. She could smell coffee and bacon. She found Josiah in the kitchen cooking. The broken window was already boarded up. "Morning," he said without turning. "Sleep okay?" "Yes." Eleanor slid into her chair. "Thank you for last night." "Nothing to thank me for." He set a plate in front of her. "You needed someone. I was there. That's what marriage is supposed to be. You could have taken advantage." Now he did turn expression serious. "No, I couldn't have, because that's not who I am." He paused. "You were vulnerable. You were scared. Any man who'd take advantage of that is a coward and a predator. I'm neither." "I know." And Eleanor realized she did know. Bone-deep certainty. "I trust you." Something shifted in Josiah's face. Relief, joy. Yeah. They ate in comfortable silence. After breakfast, Josiah cleared his throat. "I need to ride out to the north pasture, check the fence line. I'll be gone most of the day." He hesitated. "You'll be alone. Will you be okay?" Eleanor considered. "I think so. Tom and Margie are just east if you need anything." He grabbed his hat. "I left my rifle by the door. Tomorrow I'll teach you to shoot. Woman living out here needs to know how to protect herself." He headed out. Eleanor watched through the window as he saddled a large black horse and rode north. She cleaned the kitchen, swept the floors, started bread dough. Around noon, she took a break, poured coffee, sat in her special chair. This house, this life, this gentle giant who'd promised her safety and delivered it without hesitation. It wasn't what she'd expected. She'd expected loneliness at best, danger at worst. Instead, she'd found something she'd never dared hope for. A home, a real home. Not just a building, but a place where she could breathe. Where she could be herself, small, damaged, cautious, without apology. Where someone saw her scars and didn't flinch. Eleanor looked down at her coffee cup and realized she was smiling. For the first time in years, she was actually genuinely happy. Josiah returned at dusk, muddy and exhausted. Eleanor had dinner waiting: venison, roast potatoes, carrots, fresh bread. "Smells incredible." He hung his hat up, started pulling off his boots. Fence was down in 3 places, found 2 calves that wandered through. "You should eat. I'll heat water for washing after." They fell into rhythm. Josiah ate while Eleanor cleaned. Then she heated water while he washed outside. When he came back in, she had coffee ready. They sat by the fire. "Eleanor," Josiah said finally, "last night, what you said about trusting me. I meant it. I know, but I need you to understand something." He turned to face her. "Trust isn't all or nothing. You can trust me to hold you during a storm and not trust me with other things. You can trust me today and change your mind tomorrow. Trust is something you get to control completely, always." Eleanor studied him. This man who thought so carefully about her comfort, her autonomy, her fears. "What if I want to trust you with more?" she asked quietly. Josiah's hands tightened on his cup. "Then you tell me what and when, and I follow your lead." "What if I don't know what I want yet?" "Then we wait until you do." He smiled slightly. "I'm patient, Eleanor. I've been alone for 5 years. I can wait as long as you need." She believed him, but she was also starting to realize something. She didn't want to wait forever. "Teach me to shoot tomorrow," she said. Josiah blinked at the subject change, but nodded. "After morning chores. And teach me about the ranch, the cattle, the horses, how everything works." "Why? Because this is my home now." Eleanor met his eyes. "I want to belong here, not just live here, belong here." Something fierce and bright flashed across Josiah's face. "Yeah, okay, I'll teach you everything." They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Outside, coyotes yipped. The house creaked and settled. Eleanor thought about Boston, about Richard. That life felt like it belonged to someone else. This was her life now. This house, this man, this vast territory, where different didn't mean dangerous, where small didn't mean weak, where trust could be rebuilt one careful moment at a time. She looked at Josiah, at his profile limned in firelight, and felt her heart skip. Not from fear, from something else. Something that might eventually be called love, but not yet, not quite yet. First came trust, then came friendship, then came partnership, and maybe if she was very brave and he remained very patient, love would follow. Eleanor could wait. She'd survived worse things than waiting. For now, this was enough. The next morning came cold and bright. Eleanor woke to the sound of Josiah moving around the kitchen, the smell of coffee already filling the house. She dressed quickly, braided her hair, and joined him. He looked up from the stove. "Morning, you're up early. You said you'd teach me to shoot." A smile tugged at his mouth. "After breakfast, and after I finish the morning chores. Cattle don't care about shooting lessons." Eleanor poured herself coffee. "Then I'll help with the chores." "You don't have to." "I want to." She met his eyes. "You said this is my home. That means the work is mine too." Josiah studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but you'll need different clothes. Can't muck stalls in a dress." He disappeared into his room and came back with trousers, a shirt, and suspenders. All far too big, but Eleanor rolled the cuffs and cinched the suspenders tight. She looked ridiculous. Josiah's expression said he was trying very hard not to laugh. "Say it," Eleanor told him. "Say whatever you're thinking." "I'm thinking you look like a child playing dress-up in her father's clothes." He grinned. "But you also look determined, and I'll take determined over pretty any day." Something warm bloomed in Eleanor's chest. Richard had cared only about pretty, about her being decorative and silent and small. "Let's go," she said. The barn was warm, smelling of hay and horses and leather. 3 horses occupied the stalls. The big black Josiah rode a bay mare and a smaller paint gelding. Chickens roosted in the rafters. A barn cat watched them from a hay bale. Josiah handed Eleanor a pitchfork. "Mucking stalls isn't glamorous, but it needs doing." "Show me." He demonstrated methodical, efficient movements. Eleanor copied him. The work was hard. Her arms ached within minutes. But there was something satisfying about it too, something real. They worked in companionable silence. When the stalls were clean, Josiah showed her how to distribute fresh hay, how to check the water troughs, how to examine the horses' hooves for stones. "This is Goliath." He stroked the black's neck. "He's the only horse I've found that can carry me. Bought him off a freight company 3 years ago." "So, and the others?" "Daisy's the bay. She's sweet-tempered but stubborn, and that's Buttons." He nodded at the paint. "He's small but steady. Might be a good match for you if you want to learn to ride." Eleanor had never ridden a horse. The idea terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "Maybe," she said. Josiah just smiled. After the barn, he showed her the chicken coop, the root cellar, the smokehouse. Explained the rhythms of ranch life, when to plant, when to harvest, when to slaughter. Eleanor absorbed it all, asking questions, committing details to memory. By mid-morning, her body ached and her hands were blistered, but she felt more alive than she had in years. "Ready for that shooting lesson?" Josiah asked. Eleanor nodded. He retrieved the rifle from inside a Winchester well-maintained. He handled it with the same careful competence he handled everything else. "First rule," he said, "always assume it's loaded, even when you know it's not. That keeps you from getting careless." He showed her how to hold it, how to brace it against her shoulder, how to sight down the barrel. His hands were patient, adjusting her grip, steadying her stance. Eleanor was acutely aware of his proximity, his warmth at her back. "Breathe out slowly as you squeeze the trigger," he murmured. "Don't jerk it. Steady pressure." Eleanor focused on the target, a tin can set on a fence post 50 yards out. Breathed out, squeezed. The rifle kicked hard. The shot went wide, kicking up dirt 10 feet to the left. Eleanor's shoulder throbbed. "Again," Josiah said. She tried 5 more times, missed every time. Frustration built in her chest. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can. You're tensing up right before you shoot, anticipating the kick. He moved behind her again, hands on her shoulders. Relax, trust yourself. Eleanor took a breath, let it out, squeezed. The can pinged and spun off the post. There, Josiah said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Knew you could do it. Eleanor lowered the rifle, grinning. I hit it. You did, and now you'll do it again and again until it becomes natural. They spent another hour practicing. By the end, Eleanor was hitting the target more often than not. Her shoulder was bruised and her ears rang, but pride swelled in her chest. Good work, Josiah said as they walked back to the house. Give it a few more weeks and you'll be better than me. I doubt that. I don't. He glanced at her. You're tougher than you think, Eleanor. She wanted to believe him. Inside, Eleanor changed back into her dress, while Josiah made lunch cold beef bread cheese. They ate quickly, efficiently. Then Josiah stood. I need to ride into town, pick up some supplies, should be back before dark. He hesitated. You want to come? Eleanor's first instinct was to say yes, but something stopped her. The idea of town of people staring, whispering, judging made her stomach clench. Not this time, she said. Josiah nodded, accepting without question. All right, lock the door if it makes you feel better, and remember Tom and Margie are just east if you need anything. After he left, Eleanor cleaned the kitchen, then wandered the house. It was strange being alone here. Strange, but not frightening. The silence felt peaceful rather than oppressive. She found herself in Josiah's room, not snooping, just curious. The space was spare, a bed large enough to accommodate him, a trunk at its foot, a small table with a lamp and a book. She picked up the book, Shakespeare's sonnets. The pages were worn, well read. Eleanor tried to imagine this mountain of a man reading poetry by lamplight and found that she could. A knock at the door made her jump. She crossed to the window, peered out. A woman stood on the porch, 60-something, iron-gray hair pulled into a severe bun, dressed in black from neck to ankle. Two younger women flanked her, both wearing identical expressions of pinched disapproval. Eleanor's stomach sank. She knew this type. Self-righteous, judgmental, convinced of their own moral superiority. The knock came again, louder. Eleanor considered pretending she wasn't home, but that felt cowardly. This was her house now, her home. She opened the door. Yes. The older woman's eyes traveled from Eleanor's head to her toes, taking in every detail. Mrs. McCready, I presume? Yes. I'm Mrs. Beatrice Holbrook. This is my daughter Constance and my niece Abigail. We're from the First Presbyterian Church in town. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We heard Josiah had taken a wife. Thought we'd come welcome you properly. Eleanor knew exactly what kind of welcome this was. That's kind of you. May we come in? Every instinct screamed no, but refusing would only fuel whatever gossip they were already spreading, of course. The three women swept inside like a flock of disapproving crows. Their eyes catalogued everything, the oversized furniture, the smaller chair, the step stools. Eleanor saw judgment in every glance. Tea, she offered, because that's what hostesses did. That would be lovely, Mrs. Holbrook said, settling into the small chair without being invited. The younger women perched on the sofa. Eleanor went to the kitchen, hands shaking slightly as she prepared the tea. She could hear them murmuring, their voices pitched low but not low enough. So small, like a child. What was he thinking? Poor thing, probably desperate. Eleanor's jaw tightened. She carried the tea tray back to the parlor, set it down carefully. Thank you, dear, Mrs. Holbrook said. Now then, we wanted to make sure you're settling in well. Ranch life can be quite difficult for women unaccustomed to it. I'm managing fine. I'm sure you are, but we also wanted to, how shall I put this delicately, ensure that you're safe. Mrs. Holbrook's eyes sharpened. Josiah McCready is a very large man, and you're so very small. If there were ever any trouble, you would tell someone, wouldn't you? Eleanor's stomach turned. There's no trouble. Of course not. I'm sure he's perfectly gentle. It's just that a man of his size, well, accidents can happen. Things can get broken. A meaningful pause. People can get hurt. Constance leaned forward. We just want you to know that if you ever feel unsafe, the church can help. We can find you somewhere else to stay, somewhere more appropriate. More appropriate, Eleanor repeated slowly. Well, yes, you must understand how irregular this all seems. A mail-order marriage to a man twice your size. No courtship, no proper introduction. It's all rather, Abigail searched for the word, unseemly. Something hot and sharp rose in Eleanor's chest. These women, sitting in her home drinking her tea, daring to judge her marriage, daring to imply that Josiah was dangerous. She set her teacup down with a sharp click. I understand your concern, Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the anger burning through her, but let me be very clear. My husband treats me with more respect, more kindness, and more consideration than any man I've ever known. He built furniture to my size so I'd be comfortable. He gave me my own room with a lock so I'd feel safe. He asks permission before touching me. He listens when I speak. He values my opinions. Mrs. Holbrook's expression tightened. That's all well and good, but I'm not finished. Eleanor stood, forcing them to look up at her. You want to know what's unseemly? Coming to someone's home uninvited to spread gossip and insinuations, judging a good man because he looks different, pretending concern while really just fishing for scandal. Constance gasped. Abigail's mouth fell open. Josiah McCready is 10 times the man your husbands probably are. Eleanor continued, her voice rising. He treats me like a queen, while I'd wager your husbands treat you like servants, so you can take your false concern and your judgment and get out of my house. Mrs. Holbrook stood, her face flushed with rage. Well, I can see we made a mistake coming here. Clearly you're as inappropriate as this entire situation. Clearly, Eleanor agreed. The door's behind you. The three women left in a flurry of indignant muttering. Eleanor watched through the window as they climbed into their buggy and drove away. Then her legs gave out and she sank into her chair, shaking. She'd just made enemies of the town's most prominent gossips. She'd probably ensured that she and Josiah would be social pariahs. Richard would have beaten her senseless for such a display, but she didn't regret it. Not one word. The sun was setting when Josiah returned. He carried packages into the house, humming under his breath. Eleanor watched him from her chair, trying to decide whether to tell him about the visitors. You're quiet, he observed, setting the supplies on the kitchen table. Something wrong. We had visitors today. His expression shifted. Who? Mrs. Holbrook and her daughter and niece. Josiah's jaw tightened. What did they want? To make sure I was safe, to offer me somewhere else to stay if I needed it. Eleanor met his eyes. To imply that you're dangerous. He was very still. What did you say? I told them you treat me better than any man I've ever known, that you're worth 10 of their husbands. Then I threw them out of my house. Josiah stared at her. You threw them out. Yes. Beatrice Holbrook runs half the social organizations in this county. She'll make your life hell now. I don't care. Eleanor stood cross to him. She insulted you in my home, in our home. I won't tolerate that. Something fierce and bright blazed in Josiah's eyes. You defended me. Of course I did. You're my husband. Eleanor? His voice was rough. No one's ever defended me before, ever. People either fear me or mock me or try to use my strength for their own purposes, but no one's ever stood up for me. Well, I did, and I'd do it again. She paused. Though I probably should have asked if you cared about being social pariahs first. Josiah laughed, a real laugh, deep and genuine. I've been a social pariah my entire life, but you just got here. You could have stayed neutral, could have played nice, could have tried to make friends. I don't need friends like that. I need... Eleanor stopped. What do you need? This. She gestured between them. Someone who sees me, who respects me, who builds me furniture and teaches me to shoot and doesn't punish me for burning bread." Her voice dropped. "I need you, Josiah. And if defending you means the town gossips hate me, then so be it." Josiah closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands came up to cup her face carefully, gently, giving her time to pull away. Eleanor didn't pull away. "Can I kiss you?" he asked quietly. Eleanor's heart hammered. This was it. The moment she'd been both dreading and anticipating. The test. She looked up at him, at this giant of a man who'd shown her nothing but gentleness and patience, who'd kept every promise, who'd given her time to heal. "Yes," she whispered. Josiah leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. His lips brushed hers, soft, careful questioning. Eleanor's eyes fluttered closed. She felt his restraint, his control, his desperate care not to frighten her. She pressed closer, rising on her toes, deepening the kiss. Josiah made a sound low in his throat, his arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly. Eleanor's hands found his shoulders, holding on, as the kiss turned from tentative to sure. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Josiah rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that since the day you arrived," he admitted. "Why didn't you?" "Because you needed time, and I'd wait forever if that's what you needed." He pulled back slightly. "But Eleanor, I need you to understand something. This us, it's not just convenient for me. It's not just companionship. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have. And if that's too much, if that's too fast, tell me now, and I'll step back." Eleanor's breath caught. Love. The word terrified her. Richard had said he loved her too, at the beginning. Before the drinking, before the anger, before the fists. But Josiah wasn't Richard. Josiah had proven that 100 times over. "I don't know if I can say it back yet," she said quietly. "The word is, it's complicated for me. It meant something different before. I know, and I'm not asking you to say it. I'm just telling you where I stand so you know, so there's no confusion." He touched her cheek. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Eleanor leaned into his touch. "What if I'm never the wife you deserve? What if I'm too damaged, too broken? Then you're damaged and broken, and I love you anyway." Josiah's voice was firm. "You think I'm not damaged too? You think growing up like this, being treated like a monster, didn't leave scars? We're both broken, Eleanor, but maybe broken pieces can fit together. Maybe that's the point." Tears pricked Eleanor's eyes. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it." He kissed her forehead. "Now come help me put away these supplies. I bought you something." "What?" He pulled a package from the pile brown paper tied with string. Eleanor unwrapped it carefully. Inside was fabric, soft, practical cotton in a deep green, enough for a dress. "Thought you might want something that fits," Josiah said. "Something that's yours, not borrowed from Boston or made over from scraps. Yours." Eleanor ran her fingers over the fabric. Such a simple gift. But it meant everything. It meant he saw her. It meant he wanted her to be comfortable, to feel at home. "Thank you," she whispered. "Bahmed, you're welcome. Now I'm starving, and whatever you made for dinner smells incredible. Let's eat." They moved into the kitchen, falling into the rhythm they'd developed. Eleanor served the stew she'd kept warm. Josiah devoured it with obvious pleasure, complimenting every bite. They talked about his trip to town, what supplies he'd bought, who he'd seen, the news he'd heard. "There's a barn dance next month," he said. "Tom mentioned it. Thought we might go." Eleanor's stomach clenched. "A dance with the whole town. Most of them, yeah. It's a harvest celebration. Food, music, dancing." He paused. "But if you're not comfortable, we don't have to go." "Will Mrs. Holbrook be there?" "Probably." Eleanor considered. Part of her wanted to hide, to avoid the stares and whispers, but another part, the part that had stood up to those women today, wanted to face them down, to show the whole town that she wasn't ashamed of her marriage or her husband. "Let's go," she said. Josiah's eyebrows rose. "You sure?" "No, but I'll go anyway." She met his eyes. "I won't hide, and I won't let them make you hide either." Something like pride crossed his face. "All right then, we'll go, and we'll show them exactly what they're so quick to judge." After dinner, they sat by the fire. Josiah pulled out a block of wood and a knife began carving. Eleanor watched his hands, so large yet so precise in their movements. "What are you making your spoons? Always need more spoons." He glanced at her. "Helps me think. What are you thinking about? You, how you stood up to those women. How brave that was." He shaved off another curl of wood. "How lucky I am that you answered my advertisement." "I'm the lucky one," Eleanor said quietly. "I came here expecting loneliness, at best danger at worst. Instead I found—" She searched for the word. "Home." Josiah set down his carving. "Come here." Eleanor rose and crossed to him. He pulled her onto his lap, carefully, slowly, giving her time to object. She didn't object. She curled against his chest, his arms wrapping around her, his chin resting on top of her head. They sat like that for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling around the corners of the house. Inside, wrapped in Josiah's arms, Eleanor felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. "Josiah, yeah, when you said you're falling in love with me," she hesitated. "I think maybe I'm falling too. I'm scared of me, of what happens if I let myself love you and then lose you, or if I'm not enough, or if I can't be what you need." Josiah's arms tightened slightly. "You're already what I need, and you're not going to lose me. I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." He paused. "But Eleanor, love is always a risk. There's no way around that. All I can do is promise that I'll be here, that I'll choose you every day for the rest of my life, whether you love me back or not." Eleanor tilted her head back to look at him. His expression was open, honest, vulnerable. This giant of a man was laying his heart at her feet, asking nothing in return. "I'm going to try," she said. "I'm going to try to let myself love you. That's all I ask. Just try." She kissed him then, not tentatively this time, but with purpose. Josiah responded immediately, his lips moving against hers with barely restrained hunger. Eleanor felt answering heat bloom in her belly. This wasn't the calculated manipulation Richard had used. This was genuine desire tempered by patience and respect. When they broke apart, Josiah's breathing was ragged. "Eleanor, I need to be clear about something. I want you. God, I want you. But when we take that step, if we take that step, it happens on your terms, at your pace. I need you to know that." "I know." And she did. She trusted him completely now. The fear was still there, but it was fading, replaced by something warmer, something that felt like hope. "Not tonight," she said, "but soon, maybe soon." Josiah nodded, accepting without complaint. "Whenever you're ready." They stayed by the fire until Eleanor started to doze. Then Josiah carried her to her room, actually carried her like she weighed nothing at all. He set her gently on the bed. "Sleep well," he said, and turned to go. "Josiah." He paused at the door. "Thank you for everything, for being patient, for being kind, for being you." His smile was soft in the lamplight. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Good night, Eleanor." "Good night." He closed the door softly. Eleanor lay in the darkness, listening to his footsteps retreat to his own room. Her heart felt full, almost painfully so. 3 weeks ago she'd been alone, terrified, running from a past that haunted her. Now she had a home, a husband who cherished her, a future that didn't look like survival but like actual happiness. It was almost too much to believe. But Eleanor was learning to believe in impossible things. She was learning to trust, to hope, to imagine a life where she wasn't just existing, but thriving. And it was all because of the gentle giant who'd promised her safety and delivered so much more. Eleanor closed her eyes and fell asleep, smiling. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. Eleanor woke each morning to the sound of Josiah moving through the house, already up and working before dawn. She'd join him for breakfast, then they'd tackle the day's work together, mending fences, tending cattle, preserving the late harvest vegetables. Her hands grew calloused, her muscles stronger. The borrowed trousers fit better now that she'd taken them in with careful stitching. Josiah taught her to ride buttons, patient through every wobble and near fall. He showed her how to read the sky for coming weather, how to tell when a cow was about to calve, how to stack hay so it wouldn't rot over winter. Eleanor absorbed it all, hungry for knowledge, hungry to be useful. And at night after dinner and chores, they'd sit by the fire. Sometimes Josiah carved while Eleanor sewed her new green dress. Sometimes they just talked about everything and nothing, their pasts, their hopes, their fears. The conversations grew deeper, more intimate. The silences grew comfortable. Josiah kissed her goodnight now, every night. Slow, deep kisses that left Eleanor breathless and wanting. But he never pushed for more, never asked for what she wasn't ready to give. His patience was infinite, his respect unwavering. Eleanor felt herself opening like a flower toward sun. The fear that had lived in her chest for so long was fading, replaced by something she was almost afraid to name. Then came the morning she woke feeling strange. Not sick exactly, just off. Her breasts felt tender. Her stomach rolled when she smelled the bacon Josiah was frying. She pushed the queasiness down and joined him for breakfast, but couldn't manage more than a few bites of toast. "You feeling all right?" Josiah asked, concern creasing his forehead. "Fine, just not very hungry." He studied her but didn't push. That was one of the things she loved about him. He knew when to let things be. 3 days later, the same thing happened. Then 4, then 5. By the end of the week, Eleanor could barely keep anything down before noon. And her monthly courses, which had always been regular as clockwork, hadn't come. She knew what it meant. She'd seen it enough times in the tenement buildings back in Boston, heard the whispered conversations between women, but the knowing didn't make it less terrifying. She was pregnant. The realization hit her one morning while she was feeding the chickens. Her hand went to her stomach, still flat, still unchanged. But inside something was growing. A child, Josiah's child. Panic clawed up her throat. She was too small. Everyone had always said so. Too small to carry a child safely, especially one fathered by a man of Josiah's size. Women died in childbirth all the time, and she was already at a disadvantage. And they'd barely, even Eleanor's mind, raced back through the past 3 weeks. There had been one night 10 days ago. She'd finally felt ready, had finally invited Josiah to her room. It had been awkward and tender and nothing like the mechanical, painful encounters with Richard. Josiah had been so careful, so attentive, stopping twice to make sure she was all right. Afterward, he'd held her and told her she was brave and beautiful and his. Just once. They'd only been together once, but apparently once was enough. Eleanor sank onto an overturned bucket, her legs suddenly weak. What would Josiah say? Would he be happy, terrified? Would he see her differently now, not as a partner but as fragile, breakable, something that needed to be protected? Or worse, would he regret marrying someone so small, someone who might not survive giving him a child? Eleanor. She looked up. Josiah stood in the barn doorway, backlit by morning sun. "You've been out here a while. Everything all right?" "Yes, Her voice cracked. "Can we talk?" His expression shifted immediately to concern. He crossed to her, knelt in front of the bucket so they were eye to eye. "What's wrong?" Eleanor opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "I think I'm pregnant." Josiah went very still. His eyes searched hers. "You're sure?" "Not completely, but all the signs." She pressed a hand to her stomach. "I haven't had my courses. I've been sick every morning. My body feels different." "How long?" "I think maybe 3 weeks since that night." Josiah's hand came up to cover hers where it rested on her belly. His palm was warm, steady. "And you're frightened," he said quietly. "Yes." The word came out as a whisper. "I'm so small, Josiah. And you're what? If the baby is too big, what if I can't? She couldn't finish the sentence. Hey, Josiah's other hand cupped her face, gentle but firm. Look at me. Eleanor forced herself to meet his eyes. We're going to get through this, he said. Together, we'll see the doctor, we'll make sure you have everything you need. And whatever happens, whatever comes, we face it side by side. You understand? But what if? No, what ifs. Not yet. First we find out for sure, then we make a plan. His thumb stroked her cheek. Are you happy about it? The possibility. Eleanor considered. Beneath the fear, beneath the panic was their happiness. She examined her feelings carefully and found to her surprise that there was. The idea of a child, their child, filled her with a complicated joy. Yes, she said, I think I am. Are you? Josiah's face transformed. Pure joy blazed across his features, unguarded and bright. Eleanor, you just told me we might be having a baby, our baby. Yes, I'm happy. I'm terrified and thrilled, and he pulled her into his arms, careful even in his excitement. God, yes, I'm happy. Eleanor clung to him, letting his certainty steady her. Maybe it would be all right. Maybe they could do this. Maybe we should go to town, Josiah said. See Doc Brennan. Get you checked properly. Eleanor's stomach clenched for a different reason. Town means people. People like Mrs. Holbrook. I don't care about Mrs. Holbrook. I care about you and our possible baby getting proper medical attention. Today, now I'll hitch the wagon. 20 minutes later, they were heading toward town, Eleanor wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. Josiah drove in silence, but his hand found hers and held tight. Eleanor squeezed back, drawing strength from his presence. Town was busier than she'd expected. It was market day, apparently farmers selling the last of their harvest, women shopping for winter supplies. The wagon rolled down the main street, and Eleanor felt eyes turning toward them. Whispers followed in their wake like wind. Ignore them, Josiah murmured. Doc Brennan's office was above the general store. Josiah helped Eleanor down from the wagon, his hand protective at her back as they climbed the stairs. The waiting room was empty. A middle-aged man with kind eyes and graying hair emerged from the back. Josiah McCready, it's been a while. His gaze moved to Eleanor. And this must be your bride. Word reached me you'd married. I'm sure it did, Josiah said dryly. Doc Brennan, this is my wife Eleanor. We need you to examine her. Of course. Come on back, Mrs. McCready. The examination was thorough and mortifying. Doc Brennan asked questions about her courses, her symptoms, her medical history. He pressed on her abdomen, listened to her heartbeat, examined her thoroughly. Eleanor answered everything honestly, her face burning the entire time. Josiah waited outside, though Eleanor could feel his tension through the wall. Finally, Doc Brennan sat back. Well, Mrs. McCready, congratulations. You're definitely pregnant. I'd estimate about 4 weeks along, maybe 5. Eleanor's breath left her in a rush. Hearing it confirmed made it real in a way it hadn't been before. And she had to force the words out. Given my size, will I be able to carry to term, deliver safely? Doc Brennan's expression grew serious. I won't lie to you. Your small stature does increase the risks, and given your husband's size, there's a concern the baby might be larger than average. He paused. But I've delivered babies from women smaller than you. It's not impossible. It will require careful monitoring, proper nutrition, and rest. No heavy lifting, no overexertion. And when the time comes, we'll need to be prepared for complications. What kind of complications? The baby getting stuck, excessive bleeding, the labor going on too long and exhausting you. He held up a hand when Eleanor paled. These are possibilities, not certainties. Every pregnancy is different, but you need to understand the risks so you can make informed decisions. What kind of decisions? Doc Brennan's voice gentled. Whether to continue the pregnancy. Some women in your situation choose not to protect their own lives. It's not a decision to be made lightly, but it is your decision to make. Eleanor's hand went to her stomach protectively. No, I want this baby. Even knowing the risks. Even knowing the risks. Doc Brennan nodded. Then we'll do everything we can to make sure you and the baby both come through this safely. I want to see you every 2 weeks for the first few months, then every week as you get closer to your due date. Can you manage that? Yes. Eleanor's mind was spinning. What should I do differently? What shouldn't I do? Eat well, rest often, listen to your body. If something feels wrong, come see me immediately. And, he hesitated, you'll need to avoid marital relations after the 6th month. The activity could trigger early labor. Eleanor nodded, taking it all in. Doc Brennan wrote out a list of instructions foods she should eat, warning signs to watch for. When he opened the door to the waiting area, Josiah shot to his feet. Well, his voice was tight with tension. She's pregnant, Doc Brennan confirmed, about 4 or 5 weeks. But there are risks. What kind of risks? Josiah's hand found Eleanor's gripped tight. Doc Brennan repeated what he'd told Eleanor. Josiah's face went pale, then determined. What do we need to do? Keep her healthy, keep her rested, bring her in regularly so I can monitor her progress. Doc Brennan looked between them. And prepare yourselves mentally, this won't be easy, but if you're both committed, if you work together, there's a good chance everything will be fine. We're committed, Josiah said firmly, whatever it takes. They left the office in a daze. Eleanor's mind churned with information, with fears, with a strange bubbling excitement she couldn't quite suppress. A baby. She was going to have a baby. Josiah's baby. We should get some supplies before we head back, Josiah said. Doc said you need to eat well. I'll stock up on everything. They headed to the general store. The proprietor, Mr. Henderson, greeted them warmly enough, but Eleanor noticed his eyes flicking between her and Josiah with undisguised curiosity. She ignored him, focusing on the list Doc Brennan had given her. They were examining cuts of meat when Eleanor heard the familiar voice behind her. Well, well, the blushing bride. Eleanor turned. Mrs. Holbrook stood there with her daughter Constance, both wearing matching expressions of false sweetness. Mrs. Holbrook, Eleanor kept her voice level. I heard you were in town, visiting Doc Brennan, no less. Mrs. Holbrook's eyes gleamed. Not feeling well. I'm feeling fine, thank you. Are you? Because you look positively peaky. Doesn't she look peaky, Constance? Very peaky, mother. Eleanor felt Josiah tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm, a silent message to let her handle this. I appreciate your concern, but as I said, I'm fine. Of course you are. Mrs. Holbrook's smile sharpened, though I suppose it's to be expected. Marriage to a man of such unusual proportions must take its toll. Several other shoppers had stopped to watch. Eleanor felt their eyes, felt the weight of their judgment and curiosity. My marriage is none of your concern, Eleanor said quietly. Perhaps not, but as prominent members of this community, we do feel a certain responsibility to look after our more vulnerable citizens. Mrs. Holbrook's gaze traveled pointedly over Eleanor's small frame, especially those who may have made unfortunate choices. The only unfortunate choice I see here is your continued rudeness, Eleanor said, her voice rising despite her best efforts. I've told you before, my husband treats me with more respect and kindness than you've shown in our entire acquaintance. If you have nothing pleasant to say, perhaps you should say nothing at all. How dare you? How dare I? Eleanor stepped forward. She was a foot shorter than Mrs. Holbrook, but fury made her feel 10 feet tall. How dare you come into my home spreading vicious gossip? How dare you stand here in public questioning my marriage and implying my husband is somehow abusive? How dare you pretend concern while really just feeding your own self-righteous superiority? The store had gone completely silent. Everyone was staring. Josiah McCready is the best man I've ever known, Eleanor continued, her voice ringing clear. He's gentle and kind and patient. He built me furniture so I'd be comfortable. He teaches me skills so I can be independent. He respects my choices and my autonomy. He holds me when I'm scared and makes me laugh when I'm sad. He's everything a husband should be." She paused, breathing hard. "And frankly, Mrs. Holbrook, if you spent half as much energy improving your own life as you spend judging mine, you might actually be happy. As it is, I pity you, because a woman who can only feel important by tearing others down must be very empty inside." Mrs. Holbrook's face had gone purple. "You insolent little—" "That's enough." Josiah's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He stepped forward, putting himself slightly in front of Eleanor. "My wife has said her piece. Now I'll say mine. You've insulted her twice now. You've implied I'm dangerous, that she's not safe with me, that our marriage is somehow wrong. You've done it in my home and now in public. It stops now." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Everyone in the store was frozen listening. "Eleanor is my wife. She's happy. She's safe. She's loved. And if you or anyone else has a problem with that, you can take it up with me directly, instead of hiding behind false concern and gossip." He paused. "But I warn you, I'm done being polite about this. The next person who insults my wife or our marriage will find out exactly how unpleasant I can be when provoked." Mrs. Holbrook opened her mouth, closed. It opened it again. Nothing came out. Finally, she turned on her heel and marched out of the store, Constance scurrying after her. The silence lasted another beat. Then Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "Well said, Josiah. Eleanor," he smiled at them. "Now what can I get for you folks?" The spell broke. Conversation resumed, though Eleanor could feel eyes still on them, hear whispers still circulating. But there was a difference now. Some of the whispers sounded approving. Several women nodded at Eleanor, or as she passed. One even smiled. They finished their shopping quickly. As they were loading the wagon, Tom Patterson appeared, grinning broadly. "Heard you gave Beatrice Holbrook what for in Henderson's store?" "Twice now, by my count. Woman's been insufferable for years. About time someone put her in her place." He clapped Josiah on the shoulder. "You picked yourself a firecracker, son." "I know," Josiah said, and the pride in his voice made Eleanor's chest warm. "How's Margie?" Eleanor asked, eager to change the subject. "She's good. Been meaning to have you folks over for dinner. Would you come by this Sunday?" Josiah looked at Eleanor. She nodded. "We'd like that," Josiah said. The ride home was quiet. Eleanor felt wrung out, exhausted by emotion and confrontation, but she also felt strangely lighter. She'd stood up for herself, for Josiah, for their marriage, publicly, and the world hadn't ended. "You were magnificent in there," Josiah said finally. "I probably shouldn't have said all that." "Why not? It was true." He glanced at her. "You defended me again, even when it would have been easier to stay quiet. I won't let anyone insult you, ever." "I know, and Eleanor," he paused, "I love you. I've been wanting to say it again, and I'm saying it now. I love you. For your courage, your strength, your fierce loyalty, for everything you are." Eleanor's throat tightened. The words still scared her, but less than they had, because this was Josiah. And Josiah had proven over and over that his love wasn't a trap or a weapon. It was a gift, freely given, with no strings attached. "I'm getting there," she said softly. "I'm not quite ready to say it back yet, but I'm getting there. That's all I need. As long as you're getting there, I can wait." When they got home, Josiah insisted Eleanor rest while he put away the supplies. She tried to argue, but exhaustion won. She lay down in her room and fell asleep almost immediately. She woke to the smell of dinner cooking. Her stomach rumbled. For the first time in days, she was actually hungry. She joined Josiah in the kitchen, where he was making vegetable stew and fresh bread. "Feel better?" he asked. "Yes, hungry, actually." "Good. Doc said you need to eat well. I made extra." They ate together, the comfortable silence of two people who'd learned each other's rhythms. After dinner, Josiah pulled Eleanor onto his lap in the big chair by the fire. "We need to talk about this," he said quietly. "The baby, the risks." Eleanor tensed. "I'm not changing my mind. I'm not asking you to. But we need to be realistic. Doc Brennan said there could be complications. Serious ones. His arms tightened around her. Eleanor, if something goes wrong, if it comes down to choosing between you and the baby, don't. She pressed her fingers to his lips. Don't ask me to make that choice now. I have to, because when the time comes, if there's a choice to be made, I need you to know where I stand. His voice was rough with emotion. I choose you. Every time. Without hesitation. You are what matters most to me. If saving you means losing the baby, that's what I want the doctor to do. Josiah. No, listen to me. I want this child. God, I want this child so badly. But I want you more. I need you more. And I won't lose you. I can't. His voice cracked. Please, promise me. Promise that if it comes to that, you'll choose yourself. Choose us. Eleanor looked up at him. Tears were sliding down his face. This giant of a man was crying, terrified of losing her. Something inside her chest cracked wide open. I promise, she whispered. If it comes to that, I'll choose myself. Thank you. He buried his face in her hair. Thank you. They held each other as the fire burned low. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, wrapped in Josiah's arms, Eleanor felt the full weight of what they were facing. She was pregnant with a child that might kill her. She'd made enemies of the town's most influential gossips. Her body was changing in ways she couldn't control, preparing for a trial that terrified her. But she also had Josiah, this gentle, patient, fiercely loving man who'd proven he would stand beside her through anything, who valued her life above all else, who loved her not despite her size, but for who she was, courage and fear and strength and vulnerability all tangled together. We're going to get through this, she said, echoing his words from that morning. Together. Together, Josiah agreed. And in that moment, Eleanor finally understood what love could be when it was real. Not the twisted manipulation Richard had called love. Not the conditional affection her parents had shown, but this partnership, respect, fierce loyalty, and unwavering support. Maybe she thought she was already there. Maybe she'd been there for weeks and just hadn't found the courage to name it. Josiah, yeah, I love you too. He went very still. What? I love you. I'm scared and I don't really know what I'm doing, and the word still terrifies me. But I love you. She tilted her head back to meet his eyes. You've shown me what love is supposed to look like, and I love you for it. Josiah's face crumpled. He kissed her desperately, pouring everything he felt into that kiss, relief and joy and gratitude and fierce protective love. Eleanor kissed him back with equal intensity, no longer afraid of what this feeling meant. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Josiah rested his forehead against hers. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. Again. I love you, Josiah McCready. He laughed, the sound wet with tears. I'm going to want to hear that every day for the rest of my life. Then I'll say it every day. Eleanor smiled. Starting now, I love you. I love you too, so much. They stayed wrapped in each other until the fire died to embers. Then Josiah carried Eleanor to bed, not her room this time, but his. Their room now. He undressed her carefully, reverently, then held her close under the quilts. We're going to be all right, he murmured into the darkness. All three of us. I'll make sure of it. Eleanor believed him, not because the risks weren't real, but because together they could face anything. They'd proven that already. She fell asleep in his arms, one hand resting on her still flat stomach, dreaming of a future that had once seemed impossible. A future with love, with family, with home, a future worth fighting for. The weeks turned into months, and Eleanor's body began to change into ways both wondrous and terrifying. Her belly rounded slowly at first, then with alarming speed. By the 4th month, she couldn't button her old dresses. By the 5th, she couldn't see her feet. Josiah had to help her with her boots each morning, kneeling before her with infinite patience as she grew frustrated with her own limitations. I'm useless, she said one morning, struggling to reach the laces. You're growing our child. That's not useless. Josiah finished tying the boot and looked up at her. You're doing the hardest work there is. But Eleanor felt anything but useful. She tired easily now, her back ached constantly, and Doc Brennan had forbidden her from doing any heavy work. Josiah took over everything, the cooking, the cleaning, the ranch work. He'd hired Tom's nephew to help with the cattle so he could stay closer to the house. Eleanor watched him work himself to exhaustion, and guilt ate at her. You shouldn't have to do everything, she said one evening as he made dinner for the third night in a row. I'm not doing everything. You're doing the impossible. He set a plate in front of her, chicken and potatoes and greens. Eat. Both of you need it. The baby kicked a strong flutter against Eleanor's ribs. She gasped, pressing a hand to her stomach. Josiah was at her side in an instant. What's wrong? Nothing. The baby kicked. Here, feel. She guided his hand to where she'd felt the movement. They waited breathless. Then it came again, a distinct push against Josiah's palm. His face transformed wonder and awe, replacing worry. That's our baby, he whispered. That's our baby, Eleanor confirmed. Josiah dropped to his knees, pressing his ear against her belly. Hello in there. This is your father. We're waiting for you. We can't wait to meet you. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. This man talking to their unborn child with such tenderness, such love. How had she gotten so lucky? But luck felt precarious, because with each passing week, Doc Brennan's expression grew more concerned. The baby was measuring large, very large. By the 6th month, Eleanor looked ready to deliver. Doc Brennan examined her carefully, his brow furrowed. The baby's growing fast, he said. Too fast, maybe. At this rate, we're looking at a very difficult delivery. How difficult? Josiah asked, his hand tight on Eleanor's. The baby might be too large for Eleanor to deliver naturally. We'd have to try forceps, which carries its own risks. And if that doesn't work, he hesitated. There are surgical options, but they're dangerous. Very dangerous. Eleanor's blood ran cold. What kind of surgery? Cutting through the abdominal wall to remove the baby directly. It's called a cesarean section. Some women survive it, many don't. The room tilted. Eleanor gripped the examination table, trying to breathe. Isn't there anything else? Josiah's voice was steady, but Eleanor could hear the fear underneath. Anything we can do now to make this easier. Keep her healthy. Keep her rested. Pray. Doc Brennan looked between them. And prepare yourselves. We might have to make very difficult decisions when the time comes. The ride home was silent. Eleanor stared at her hands at the ring. Josiah had bought her last month a simple gold band that fit her small finger perfectly. She twisted it round and round, trying to process what they'd just heard. Eleanor, I know what you're going to say. She cut him off. That you choose me. That if it comes to it, you want them to save me and not the baby. But Josiah, I can't. Her voice broke. I can't lose this baby. Our baby, I can't. And I can't lose you. You might have to lose one of us anyway. The words came out harsh, bitter. So maybe we should both prepare for that possibility instead of pretending we can control it. Josiah pulled the wagon to a stop. They were halfway home, surrounded by empty grassland. He turned to face her fully. You listen to me. I'm not preparing to lose you. I'm not accepting that as an outcome. We're going to fight for you both with everything we have. But if the choice comes, if it's you or the baby, I choose you. I will always choose you, and I need you to accept that. Why do I matter more? Because I love you. The words exploded out of him. Because you're my wife, my partner, the center of my entire world. Because losing you would destroy me in a way losing the baby wouldn't. I'd grieve, God knows I'd grieve, but I'd survive. But losing you, I wouldn't recover from that. Ever. Eleanor stared at him. Tears streamed down her face. I love this baby. Josiah continued, his voice rough. But I loved you first. And you come first. Always. Is that selfish? Maybe. But it's the truth, and I won't apologize for it. Eleanor reached for him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as carefully as he held everything precious. They stayed like that for a long time, clinging to each other, while the wind blew cold around them. I'm scared, Eleanor whispered finally. Me too. What if I die? You won't. But what if I do? What if you're left alone with a baby you can't? Then I'll figure it out, the same way I've figured everything else out. He pulled back to look at her. But you're not going to die. You're too stubborn, and I'm too selfish. We're both going to fight too hard for that to happen. Eleanor wanted to believe him, but belief felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. The 7th month brought new complications. Eleanor's feet swelled so badly she couldn't wear shoes. Her back hurt so much she could barely walk. She spent most days in bed or in the chair by the fire, feeling like a useless burden, while Josiah ran himself ragged, taking care of everything. The harvest dance was approaching, the one they'd planned to attend months ago. Eleanor had finished her green dress, had even managed to take it out twice to accommodate her growing belly. But now, looking at herself in the mirror, she knew she couldn't go. She was huge, ungainly, exhausted. The thought of facing the town, of dealing with Mrs. Holbrook's smug satisfaction was more than she could bear. We should stay home, she told Josiah the morning of the dance. Why? Because I look like I swallowed a watermelon, because I can barely walk, because I don't want to give those gossips the satisfaction of seeing me like this. Josiah set down the shirt he was mending. You're beautiful and strong, and I want to show you off. I'm not beautiful, I'm enormous. You're carrying our child. That makes you the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He crossed to her, knelt so they were eye level. But if you truly don't want to go, we'll stay home. I won't force you. Just know that I'm not ashamed of you or embarrassed by you. I'm proud, so damn proud. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Everything made her cry these days. I want to go. I'm afraid. Of what? Of falling, of being jostled, of going into labor in the middle of the dance floor. She laughed wetly. Of giving Mrs. Holbrook more ammunition. Then we'll go for an hour, just long enough to show our faces, and if anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. Deal. Eleanor nodded. Deal. That evening, Josiah helped her into the green dress. It strained across her belly but still fit barely. He'd braided her hair that morning. He'd gotten surprisingly good at it, and now he tucked wildflowers into the braids. Eleanor looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman transformed, not the frightened mouse who'd arrived months ago, but someone stronger, someone who'd survived and fought and loved. You ready? Josiah offered his arm, as I'll ever be. The ride to town was slow and careful, Josiah avoiding every rut and bump. By the time they arrived, the dance was in full swing. Music poured from the barn fiddles and guitars and laughter. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting warm light. People milled around outside, talking and drinking. Conversation stopped when Eleanor and Josiah approached. Every eye turned toward them. Eleanor felt the weight of those stares, felt judgment and curiosity and speculation. She lifted her chin and kept walking. Tom Patterson appeared, grinning. There you are. Margie was worried you wouldn't come. Eleanor, you look wonderful. Liar, Eleanor said, but she smiled. Where's Margie? Inside holding court with the other ladies. Come on. They entered the barn. More stairs, more whispers. But Tom led them confidently through the crowd to where his wife stood with a group of women. Margie was 50-something, round and comfortable, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense air. She lit up when she saw Eleanor. Finally, I've been wanting to meet you properly for months. She pulled Eleanor into a gentle hug. How are you feeling? Tom said. Doc Brennan's been worried. I'm all right, tired, but all right. Of course you're tired. You're doing the work of two people. Margie turned to the other women. Ladies, this is Eleanor McCready. Eleanor, this is Martha, Susan, and Caroline. Don't mind them. They look stern, but they're softies underneath. The three women nodded greetings. Martha, the oldest, studied Eleanor with sharp eyes. You're the one who put Beatrice Holbrook in her place. Twice. Yes. Good. Woman's needed taking down a peg for years. Martha's stern face cracked into a smile. Welcome to town, Mrs. McCready. About time someone shook things up around here. Relief flooded through Eleanor. These women weren't judging her, they were accepting her. The evening passed more pleasantly than Eleanor had dared hope. The women asked about her pregnancy, offered advice and old wives' tales and encouragement. The men clapped Josiah on the back, congratulated him, teased him about impending fatherhood. For the first time since arriving in Wyoming, Eleanor felt like part of a community. Then Mrs. Holbrook arrived. The temperature in the barn seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mrs. Holbrook swept in with her usual entourage, dressed in black bombazine like she was attending a funeral. Her eyes found Eleanor immediately. She crossed the floor with purpose. Mrs. McCready, how surprising to see you here in your condition. Eleanor straightened her spine. Mrs. Holbrook, always a pleasure. I'm sure. Mrs. Holbrook's gaze traveled over Eleanor's swollen belly with undisguised satisfaction. You look ready to deliver any moment. Should you really be out and about? Doc Brennan cleared me to come, as long as I don't overexert myself. How fortunate, though I must say I'm surprised you'd want to display yourself so publicly, given the circumstances. What circumstances would those be? Well, it's quite obvious the child is going to be enormous, far too large for someone of your size to deliver safely. Mrs. Holbrook's voice dripped false sympathy. Everyone's saying you'll never survive the birth. It's all very tragic. The barn had gone quiet again. Everyone was listening. Eleanor felt Josiah tense beside her, but she put a hand on his arm. Her fight. Everyone's saying that, are they? How interesting that you've taken such a keen interest in my medical situation. One might almost think you were hoping for tragedy. Mrs. Holbrook's face flushed. I would never, wouldn't you? You've done nothing but predict doom and disaster since the moment I arrived. You've questioned my marriage, my safety, my choices. You've spread gossip and insinuations. And now you're standing here telling me everyone expects me to die. Forgive me if I don't believe your concern is genuine. I'm simply being realistic. You're being cruel. Eleanor's voice rang clear and strong. And you know what I'm done with it. I'm done with your judgment, your gossip, your fake concern. You want me to fail. You want this marriage to be the disaster you've predicted. Because if it succeeds, if we're happy, it proves that your narrow little worldview is wrong. She stepped closer despite her ungainly belly, despite the pain in her back. But we are happy. Josiah is the best man I've ever known. He treats me with respect and love and partnership. He's excited about this baby. He's built a home for us, and yes, the delivery will be dangerous. Yes, I might not survive. But that's not because of anything Josiah did wrong or any mistake I made. It's just the reality of childbirth. Women die bringing children into the world every day. Rich women, poor women, big women, small women. It doesn't discriminate. Eleanor's voice softened slightly. So if you want to pray for me, pray. If you want to help, offer actual help instead of veiled criticism. But if all you can do is stand here predicting my death and feeling superior about it, then stay away from me and my family. We don't need your poison. Silence hung heavy in the barn. Mrs. Holbrook's face had gone from red to white to purple. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then Margie started clapping, slow, deliberate applause. Martha joined her, then Caroline and Susan, then Tom. Within seconds, half the barn was applauding. Mrs. Holbrook looked around wildly, then turned and fled, her entourage scrambling after her. Eleanor's legs gave out. Josiah caught her, lowering her carefully into a chair. Someone had rushed over. That was incredible, he murmured. You're incredible. But Eleanor barely heard him. Pain had lanced through her belly, sharp, sudden, unmistakable. She gasped, pressing a hand to her stomach. Eleanor. Josiah's voice sharpened with fear. What's wrong? I don't know. It hurts. Another pain stronger this time. Oh, God. Josiah, something's wrong. Margie was at her side in an instant. How far along are you? 7 months, almost 8. And the pain, is it cramping, sharp, constant? Both. It comes and goes, but it's... Eleanor cried out as another wave hit. It's getting stronger. She's in labor, Margie said grimly. Tom, get Doc Brennan, now. Josiah, we need to get her home. No. Doc Brennan pushed through the crowd, his medical bag already in hand. Too far, too risky to move her. Is there somewhere close we can take her? The hotel, someone called, right across the street. Let's go. Josiah lifted Eleanor like she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. She wrapped her arms around his neck, trying not to scream, as another contraction hit. The crowd parted for them. Someone ran ahead to the hotel. Within minutes, Eleanor was in a first-floor room laying on a bed while Doc Brennan examined her. It's early labor, he confirmed. The baby's coming now, whether we're ready or not. But it's too early, Eleanor gasped. The baby's not due for 6 more weeks. I know, but babies come when they come. Doc Brennan's face was grim. This is going to be hard, Eleanor. The baby's large and you're small and it's early. I need you to be prepared for anything. Is she going to die? Josiah's voice was hoarse. I don't know. We're going to do everything we can, but you need to prepare yourself too. Doc Brennan turned to the gathering crowd. Everyone out except immediate family. Margie, I need you to stay and assist. Tom, boil water and bring me clean linens. Everyone else out. The room cleared. Josiah knelt beside the bed, gripping Eleanor's hand. I'm not leaving, he said. Mr. McCready, it's not appropriate. I don't care. She's my wife. That's my child. I'm staying. Doc Brennan looked at Eleanor. She nodded. Let him stay. The next hours blurred into an agony Eleanor had never imagined. The contractions came faster, harder, each one feeling like it would tear her apart. She screamed, she cursed, she begged for it to stop. Josiah held her hand through all of it, letting her squeeze until his bones creaked, murmuring encouragement and love and promises. You're so strong, he kept saying. You can do this. Stay with me. But as the hours stretched on, Doc Brennan's expression grew darker. The baby wasn't descending. Eleanor was tearing but making no progress. Blood soaked the sheets. Her strength was failing. I can't, she sobbed. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. Josiah's face was wet with tears. Just a little longer. Please, Eleanor, please stay with me. Doc Brennan pulled Margie aside. Eleanor heard them whispering forceps surgery, too much blood. She heard the word dying, and terror gave her a surge of strength. No, she gasped. I'm not dying. Not yet. Not. Another contraction seized her, and she screamed, bearing down with everything she had left. That's it. Doc Brennan was suddenly urgent. The baby's moving. Push, Eleanor, now. Eleanor pushed, until she saw stars. Pushed until she felt something give. Pushed until she heard Doc Brennan shout, I've got the head. One more push. Eleanor gathered every last shred of strength and pushed. Something tore pain so sharp it whited out her vision. Then suddenly pressure released, and she heard it. A baby crying. It's a boy, Doc Brennan announced. A big, healthy boy. Eleanor collapsed back, sobbing. Josiah was kissing her face, her hands crying and laughing. You did it. You did it. I'm so proud of you. The baby. He's here. He's beautiful. Josiah's voice broke. He's perfect. But Doc Brennan's voice cut through the joy. Margie, I need pressure here. Now. She's bleeding too much. Eleanor felt sudden cold spreading through her limbs. Heard Josiah's sharp intake of breath. Saw Doc Brennan working frantically. Saw blood. So much blood. Eleanor, stay with me. Doc Brennan's voice seemed to come from far away. Don't you dare give up now. But darkness was creeping in at the edges of her vision. Her body felt heavy, distant. She heard Josiah begging her to stay, heard her son crying, but it all seemed to be fading. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. No. Josiah's voice was raw with anguish. Don't you dare, don't you leave me, Eleanor, please. His voice followed her down into darkness. Then nothing. Eleanor woke to pain. Everything hurt her body, her head, her very bones. She tried to move, and agony lanced through her abdomen. A sound escaped her throat, half gasp, half whimper. Eleanor. Josiah's face appeared above hers, haggard and unshaven eyes red-rimmed. "Thank God, you're awake." "What?" Her voice was a croak. "What happened? You lost a lot of blood. Doc Brennan had to stitch you up. You've been unconscious for almost 2 days." His hand found hers gripped tight. "You scared the hell out of me." Memory came flooding back. The pain, the pushing, the blood, and then the baby. Eleanor tried to sit up, panic seizing her chest. "Where's the baby? Is he—" "He's fine. He's perfect. He's right here." Josiah reached beside the bed and lifted a bundle wrapped in blankets. "Meet your son." Eleanor's breath caught. The baby was tiny in Josiah's massive hands, but she could see immediately that tiny was relative. He was easily twice the size of most newborns she'd seen. Dark hair, red face, eyes squeezed shut, but alive, breathing, real. "Can I—" Her arms felt weak, but she reached out anyway. Josiah placed the baby carefully in her arms, supporting her as she adjusted to the weight. The baby made a small sound, nuzzling instinctively toward her breast. Eleanor stared down at him, overwhelmed by a love so fierce it hurt worse than any of her physical pain. "We made this," she whispered. "We made a person. You made this. You did all the hard work." Josiah's voice was thick with emotion. "You almost died doing it." "But I didn't." "No, you didn't. You're too stubborn." He touched the baby's head with one finger, the gentleness of the gesture belying the size of his hand. "He's big, 11 pounds. Doc Brennan said he's never delivered a baby that size." No wonder it hurt so much. Eleanor examined her son more closely. He had Josiah's strong jaw, his broad shoulders, already evident even in miniature, but he had her small nose, her delicate ears. A perfect blend. "What do we name him?" "I was waiting for you to wake up." Josiah settled on the edge of the bed. "What do you want to call him?" Eleanor thought about it, about this child who'd almost killed her, who she'd fought so hard to bring into the world, about the journey that had brought her here from Boston to Wyoming, from fear to love, from barely surviving to truly living. "James," she said finally. "James Whitfield McCready, after my father. He was the only member of my family who was ever kind to me." "James." Josiah tested the name. "James McCready, I like it. Hello, James. Welcome to the world, son." The baby opened his eyes, dark like his father's, and seemed to stare directly at Eleanor. Something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. "I fought for you," she thought, "and I'd do it again." Doc Brennan entered, looking exhausted, but pleased. "You're awake. Good. How's the pain?" "Bad," Eleanor admitted, "but manageable. You tore badly. The stitches will hurt for weeks. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity. You need to rest and heal." He examined her quickly, checking her pulse, her color, the bandages. "You're lucky to be alive, you know. I thought we'd lost you there for a while." "So did I. But you pulled through. You're tougher than you look, Mrs. McCready." He smiled at the baby. "And he's healthy. Lungs like a bellows and an appetite to match. You'll have your hands full." Over the next week, Eleanor slowly regained her strength. Margie and several other women from town took turns helping with the baby, bringing food, changing linens. Even Martha, the stern-faced woman from the dance, appeared with a basket of baby clothes she'd sewn herself. "My grandchildren are grown now," she said gruffly. "These were just sitting in my attic, might as well be used." Eleanor was overwhelmed by the kindness. These women who'd been strangers weeks ago were now caring for her like family. Even more surprising was the parade of men who stopped by, ranchers and farmers and townspeople, to congratulate Josiah and peek at the baby. "Word's gotten around about what happened," Tom told them. "How you stood up to Beatrice Holbrook and then went into early labor right there at the dance. Then how you nearly died but pulled through anyway. People are talking about it, about how brave you are, how strong. I'm not brave, Eleanor protested. I was terrified the entire time. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the hard thing anyway. Tom grinned. You've become something of a local legend, Eleanor McCready. Mrs. Holbrook notably did not visit. Eleanor heard through Margie that the woman had left town the day after the dance, gone to stay with a sister in Denver. Good riddance, Eleanor thought uncharitably. When Doc Brennan finally cleared Eleanor to go home, Josiah hired a wagon with extra padding and drove slower than Eleanor had ever seen him drive. James slept through the entire journey, swaddled tight against her chest. When they finally reached the ranch, Eleanor nearly cried with relief. "Home," she whispered. "Home," Josiah agreed, but stepping through the door, Eleanor stopped short. The house had been transformed. Someone, probably Josiah with help from Tom, had built a cradle that sat beside their bed. New shelves lined the walls at varying heights, more furniture in different sizes, and in the corner of the main room stood something that made Eleanor's throat close with emotion. A rocking chair, perfectly sized for her, beautifully carved with intricate details, flowers and vines and birds. "You made this," she said, running her hand over the smooth wood. "Started it the day you told me you were pregnant. Finished it 2 days ago while you were recovering." Josiah looked almost shy. "Thought you'd need somewhere comfortable to sit with James, somewhere that was just yours." Eleanor sat, carefully testing the chair. It rocked smoothly, the motion soothing. James stirred against her chest but didn't wake. She looked up at Josiah through tears. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I don't know what I did to deserve you." "You answered my advertisement. You took a chance on a stranger. You gave me a family." Josiah knelt beside the chair. "I'm the one who doesn't deserve you." "Then I guess we're even." The first weeks home were the hardest of Eleanor's life. James cried, constantly hungry every 2 hours. Eleanor's body ached from the delivery, her stitches pulling with every movement. She was exhausted beyond measure, running on pure determination and stubbornness. Josiah helped with everything he could. He changed James's diapers, walked him when he cried, brought Eleanor some water and food when she forgot to eat. He sang lullabies in his deep, rumbling voice that somehow soothed the baby when nothing else would. He learned to swaddle and burp and rock with the same patient competence he brought to everything else. "You're a natural," Eleanor told him one night, watching him pace the room with James draped over his shoulder. "Hardly. I'm terrified I'll break him. He's so small." "He's 11 pounds. He's not that small." "Compared to me, he is. Compared to everything I've ever handled, he's tiny and fragile and perfect." Josiah's voice was reverent. "I never thought I'd have this, a wife, a son, a family. I never let myself hope for it." "Neither did I," Eleanor admitted. "I thought after Richard, after everything, I'd be alone forever, that I didn't deserve anything better." "You deserve everything good in the world." Josiah finally got James to sleep and laid him carefully in the cradle. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." By the time James was 3 months old, Eleanor had mostly healed. Her body would never be quite the same, the scars would always be there, and Doc Brennan had warned her that another pregnancy would be extremely dangerous. But she was alive, she had her son, she had her husband. That was enough. More than enough. Spring came with a rush of growth and new life. The cattle had calves, the chickens hatched chicks, and James grew like a weed. By 6 months he was the size of a 1-year-old, rolling and laughing and reaching for everything. By 9 months he was trying to pull himself up on furniture, his strength already evident in his chunky arms and legs. "He's going to be big like his father," Margie observed during one of her visits. "You're going to have your hands full keeping up with him." Eleanor already knew this. James was a handful even now, curious, active, strong-willed. But she wouldn't change a thing about him. The town had fully accepted them now. When Eleanor took James to the general store, women cooed over him and asked how she was managing. Men clapped Josiah on the back. and teased him about sleepless nights. The church ladies who'd once whispered about them now invited them to socials and dinners. Even the pastor asked Josiah to help build a new addition to the church. "You're part of the community now," Tom said. "You've proven yourself, both of you." "We shouldn't have had to prove anything," Eleanor said. "We should have been accepted from the start." "You're right, but people fear what they don't understand. You and Josiah, you're different. It took them time to see past that." Tom paused. "Though beating the odds like you did surviving what you survived, that helped. People respect strength and courage." Eleanor supposed that was true, but it still stung that she'd had to nearly die to earn respect. When James was a year old, Eleanor discovered she was pregnant again. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She stood in the barn, one hand pressed to her still flat stomach, terror and joy warring in her chest. This would kill her. Doc Brennan had been clear about that. Another pregnancy, especially another large baby, would almost certainly be fatal. Her body hadn't fully recovered from the first birth. A second would be suicide. But there was a life growing inside her, another child, a brother or sister for James. She had to tell Josiah, had to figure out what to do, but the words wouldn't come. Every time she opened her mouth, fear choked her silent. Finally, 2 weeks later, Josiah confronted her. "Something's wrong. You've been distant, distracted. Are you sick? Is something wrong with James? Talk to me, Eleanor." She looked at him, this gentle giant who'd given her everything, who'd promised to always choose her, and she couldn't lie. "I'm pregnant." All the color drained from Josiah's face. No, you can't be. Doc said another pregnancy would—" "I know what he said." "Then we'll—" He stopped, clearly struggling. "There are ways to end it. Early on, Doc Brennan could—" "No." Eleanor's hand went protectively to her stomach. "I can't. I know it's dangerous. I know I might not survive, but I can't." "Eleanor, you'll die." Josiah's voice broke. "This will kill you, and I can't. I won't lose you. Not for this. Not for anything. It's not your choice." "The hell it isn't. You're my wife. James's mother. You matter more than what? Than our child. How can you ask me to choose between my life and our baby's? How is that fair? It's not fair. None of this is fair." Josiah was shouting now, something he never did. "But I'm asking you anyway. I'm begging you, please end this pregnancy. Choose yourself. Choose James. Choose me. Please, Eleanor." She'd never seen him like this, desperate, terrified, on the verge of breaking. Part of her wanted to give in, to do what he asked, to choose the safe path. But she couldn't. She'd fought too hard to bring James into the world. She couldn't turn around and refuse to fight for this child, too. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I can't do what you're asking." Josiah stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the house. Eleanor heard him saddling Goliath, heard hoofbeats receding into the distance. She sank into her rocking chair and cried until she had no tears left. He didn't come back that night, or the next day. Tom appeared in the afternoon, his expression somber. "Josiah's at our place. He told me what happened." Tom sat across from her. "He's torn up about this, Eleanor, really torn up." "I know, but I can't. I'm not here to convince you either way. That's between you and him and God. I'm just here to tell you that man loves you more than anything in this world, and the thought of losing you is destroying him. I love him too. But Tom, this is our child. How can he ask me to—" Her voice broke. "Because he already lost one family," Tom said quietly. "Did he ever tell you that?" Eleanor shook her head. "His parents died when he was 22. House fire. He tried to save them but couldn't reach them in time. That's part of why he came out here, built this place. He was running from that grief." Tom leaned forward. "And now he's terrified of losing another family. Of losing you. Can you understand that?" Eleanor hadn't known. Josiah had never mentioned it, but it explained so much: his desperate need for her to choose herself, his fear of loss, his fierce protectiveness. "I understand," she said. But I still can't do what he wants. Tom nodded slowly. Then you two have a problem, because he can't accept losing you and you can't accept ending the pregnancy. Something's got to give. Josiah came home 3 days later. He looked exhausted, hollowed out. He went straight to James, scooped him up, held him close. James babbled happily, patting his father's face. Over their son's head, Josiah's eyes met Eleanor's. "I'm sorry," he said, "for yelling, for leaving. That was wrong. I'm sorry, too, for everything." He set James down and crossed to her. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how it's not fair to make you choose. And you're right, it's not." He took her hands. "But Eleanor, I need you to understand. If something goes wrong, if it comes down to choosing, I will choose you. The doctors will have orders to save you first. I don't care if you hate me for it. I don't care if you never forgive me. I'm choosing you." Eleanor wanted to argue, but she saw the steel in his eyes. This was not negotiable. "All right," she said finally. "But I'm going to fight for both of us. I'm going to do everything Doc Brennan says, rest as much as I need to take care of myself. And I'm going to survive this. Both of us will. You can't promise that. Watch me." The pregnancy was harder than the first. Eleanor was sick, constantly exhausted beyond measure. Doc Brennan monitored her weekly, his concern evident. But Eleanor was determined. She rested, she ate well, she followed every instruction to the letter, and slowly, miraculously, she made it through the dangerous months. The baby measured smaller this time, still large, but not impossibly so. By the 7th month, Doc Brennan cautiously admitted she might actually survive. "I won't lie, it's still going to be difficult," he said. "But your body's been through this before. It knows what to do, and the baby seems positioned well. There's a chance, a real chance, you'll both be fine." Eleanor clung to that hope through the final months. James, now almost 2 years old, seemed to sense something was happening. He'd pat her belly gently and say "baby" in his high, sweet voice. Josiah had built a second cradle, this one slightly smaller. He'd added onto the house, too, another bedroom, more space for their growing family. "What if I don't survive?" Eleanor asked him one night as they lay in bed, her belly huge between them. "Then I'll raise our children and love them enough for both of us, and I'll miss you every day for the rest of my life." His hand found hers in the darkness. "But you will survive, because you're stronger than anything life can throw at you. You've proven that already." When labor started this time, Eleanor was ready. Not unafraid, she'd be a fool not to fear it, but prepared. Josiah drove her to town to Doc Brennan's office, where everything was set up. Margie was there, Martha too, both ready to help. The labor was shorter than before, but no less intense. Eleanor screamed and cursed and pushed with everything she had. But this time there were no complications. This time the baby came quickly sliding into Doc Brennan's waiting hands with one final push. "It's a girl," Doc Brennan announced, and Eleanor heard her daughter's first wail. "A girl," she gasped. "We have a daughter." Josiah was crying openly. "A daughter. We have a daughter. Eleanor, you did it. You're okay. You're both okay." This time there was no hemorrhaging, no moment where Eleanor thought she'd die. She was exhausted, sore, aching, but alive, wholly, completely alive. Doc Brennan placed the baby in her arms. She was smaller than James had been, 8 pounds, almost delicate by comparison. Dark hair like her brother, but blue eyes like Eleanor's. A perfect rosebud mouth. "Rose," Eleanor said. "Her name is Rose, like the wildflowers you put in my hair at our first dance." "Rose McCready," Josiah whispered, touching his daughter's tiny hand. "Hello, Rosie. We're so glad you're here." They brought Rose home 3 days later. James was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her constantly, bringing her his favorite toys. Eleanor watched her son with her daughter and felt her heart might burst from fullness. This was her family. This was her home. This was everything she'd never dared dream of. The years that followed were full and rich and sometimes chaotic. James grew tall and strong, gentle, like his father despite his size. Rose was small and fierce, refusing to let her size limit her in any way. Together they tore through the house, through the ranch, through their parents' hearts. Josiah added onto the house twice more rooms for the children, rooms for storage rooms, for the life they were building. He built furniture in 2 sizes, stairs in 2 heights. Everything designed so both his children could feel at home, regardless of their different sizes. Townspeople would sometimes stop by and marvel at the house, at the kitchen with counters at varying heights, at the stairs with double rails, one for James's height, one for Rose's, at the carefully considered architecture that accommodated everyone. "Why'd you build it so strange?" one visitor asked. Eleanor looked up from where she was teaching Rose to read. "Because love builds to fit, not to break. Because everyone in this family deserves to feel like they belong. Because different doesn't mean wrong. It just means we need to be creative." The visitor looked skeptical but didn't argue. One evening when James was 8 and Rose was 6, Eleanor stood at the window watching Josiah teach them both to work with wood. James's movements were confident, his large hands already skilled. Rose struggled more, her small hands having trouble with the tools, but her determination never wavered. "I can do it, Papa," she insisted. "I just need the right tools." "Then we'll make you the right tools," Josiah said. "Tools that fit your hands, because size doesn't matter half as much as determination." Eleanor thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a train station in Cheyenne to this moment. From fear and trauma to love and family, from barely surviving to fully thriving. She'd answered an advertisement from a lonely rancher and found everything she'd never known she needed. A home that fit her, a man who cherished her, children who completed her. The world had told her she was too small, too damaged, too broken, but Josiah had seen past all that to the strength underneath. And together they'd built a life that proved everyone wrong. Tom and Margie visited often, along with half the town, it seemed. The McCready Ranch became known as a place of welcome, where anyone was accepted regardless of how they looked or where they came from. Eleanor and Josiah taught their children that kindness mattered more than conformity, that love mattered more than judgment. When Rose was 10, she asked Eleanor about the scars on her stomach, the marks left from bringing both children into the world. "Did it hurt?" Rose traced the lines carefully. "Yes, more than anything I'd ever felt. But you know what, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because you and your brother are worth every scar, every moment of pain, every fear I had to face." Eleanor kissed her daughter's head. "Sometimes the best things in life require us to be brave, to fight for what matters even when we're terrified. Like how Papa was brave when he put the advertisement in the paper. Exactly like that. He was afraid no one would answer, afraid of being alone forever, but he was brave enough to try anyway. And you were brave enough to answer. I was. Best decision I ever made." That night, after the children were asleep, Eleanor and Josiah sat on the porch watching stars emerge. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of building a life together. She still fit perfectly tucked against his side, still felt safe wrapped in his arms. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Marrying me, all the complications, all the struggles." "Never, not for 1 second." Josiah kissed the top of her head. "You gave me a life I never thought I'd have. You saw past what I looked like to who I was inside. You fought for us when everyone else said we'd fail. You're the bravest person I've ever known. You make me brave. You make me want to be brave. Then we make each other brave. We make each other better. That's what love is supposed to do." Eleanor thought about Mrs. Holbrook, who'd predicted disaster and doom. The woman had moved permanently to Denver years ago, her dire warnings proven wrong. Eleanor and Josiah had not only survived, they'd thrived. Their marriage had become a testament to what was possible when two people chose each other every single day. "I love you," Eleanor said. "I don't say it enough, but I love you. You saved me." "You saved me too. We saved each other." Josiah pulled her closer. and we built something beautiful from two broken pieces." Inside, they heard Rose call out in her sleep. James's deeper voice answered, soothing his sister back to dreams. Their children so different in size, but so similar in heart. Both gentle, both strong, both loved beyond measure. Eleanor looked at the house Josiah had built, the home they'd made together. A house with furniture in two sizes, with stairs built for different heights, with love woven into every board and nail. A house that fit everyone, because it was built with care and intention, and the understanding that different didn't mean less. The world had tried to tell them they didn't fit, that she was too small and he was too large and they could never work together. But they'd proven the world wrong. They'd shown that love didn't require sameness, that partnerships could be built between people who looked nothing alike. That family came in all shapes and sizes. And standing there under the stars, wrapped in her husband's arms with her children safe inside, Eleanor finally understood what she'd been searching for all those years ago on that train platform. Not just safety, though she'd found that. Not just kindness, though she'd found that too. She'd been searching for belonging, for a place where she fit not despite her differences, but because of them. For someone who would build a life around her instead of trying to force her into a mold that didn't fit. And Josiah had given her that, had given her everything. The giant and his tiny bride had become a legend across Wyoming, the couple who'd proven that love could reshape the world, that with patience and respect and fierce determination, anything was possible. Their story was told in barns and at dinner tables, passed down as proof that different could be beautiful, that size didn't determine worth. That the strongest foundations were built not on similarity, but on mutual respect and unwavering commitment. Eleanor McCready had been too small for the world she'd left behind. But in Josiah's world, in the home they'd built together, in the family they'd created, she was exactly the right size. And together they'd built something that would last forever, a love that fit perfectly because it was made with care, built to last, and strong enough to hold anything life threw at them. Sometimes the best things don't fit easily, but the hearts that refuse to give up make them fit perfectly, and in doing so, they reshape the world itself.